I want to get into some of your standout players because we need to be educated a little bit. We know some certain players on the team, but what I found very interesting when I was looking at it earlier was the quarterback comparison, and we got the stats down below because Mendoza and Moore are almost identical when you go across the board in stats. 1,208 yards to 1,210, 241 to 242 yards a game, 9.9 to 9 yards attempt a game, 14-1 to 16-1 touchdown to interception ratios, and 73 to 74.6 completion percentage. These are like two neck and neck quarterbacks when it comes to like statistics right now, which is wild.
What game did Dante Moore throw his interception in?
Northwestern.
He threw a deep straight over the middle, but they dropped their safety deep, and he just kind of Hail Married it before the half. Like, whatever. And then they pulled him. They're like, you're good. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. Yeah, Mendoza, his pick was against Iowa. He was getting basically creamed by an Iowa defensive lineman, and he airmailed one of our receivers. So yeah, I mean,
it happens.
His pick was worse.
Yeah, it happens. Even last year, Dylan Gabriel, a couple of his were tip passes. They weren't totally on him, but it goes on the quarterback stat.
It's like I heard. It's like I heard today is another podcast was that if Oregon can get pressure and make Mendoza drop out of the pocket and make him scramble, that's when he becomes a wounded duck quarterback, is what they've said.
Was that no pun intended?
Yeah, no pun intended. Yeah. But basically, if you let him sit in the pocket, he will eat you alive.
I mean, that's not wrong. I mean, I mean, the Illinois game's the best example of that. It was a field day. I mean, every throw was complete. Everything was going Indiana's way. He couldn't do any wrong at all. I don't know if I completely agree with the fact, like, you make Mendoza have to scramble that he's bad necessarily. I think it's more so if he has to get out of the pocket to just avoid getting hit, he's got nowhere to go with it. I think that's when, like, Mendoza had the pick. It's like he was trying to escape, he couldn't, he was getting hit, and then he threw the bad throw. It's like in other games, he's run well. He's not a great runner, but he's sneakily able to run. Like, if he can escape the pocket and there's a lane for him to go, he can pick up 10. He's not like Curtis Rourke, who was literally a statue and couldn't move at all. Mendoza can run. So it's like if he gets out of the pocket, he can still make plays. I'm worried about Oregon's speed, just the talent and speed that they possess. If Indiana's O-line cannot hold up, because Indiana's offensive line is so much better than it was under Tom Allen, it's unreal. But Iowa still gave us problems. And if Iowa gave us problems with their defense not being nowhere near as good as they've been in years past, I think Oregon could absolutely give us problems. So we're going to have to hold up. We got to give Mendoza time to throw. Because if he does, he can pick anybody apart. Like, he's that good. And it still blows my mind that he was a former 2-star recruit. He was a 2-star guy that only Cal gave an offer to out of high school. He was gonna go like to I think either a MAC school or like Navy or some armed forces or an FCS program. Like, that's all he had. He had no offers, and then Cal gave him a late offer, and he did good at Cal despite getting sacked 55 times last year. So it's like he's now being protected a lot better, and now you're seeing what he's capable of.
Yeah. I think that was part of it. I was just surprised by these stats, and that's what I was going to say is part of that is playing into this is kind of like keys to the game because both these teams are top 6 in points per game allowed defensively. And one of the things that I mean, look, Mendoza, he was good at Cal. I think that was more Justin Wilcox just screwing everything up as usual That's kind of like the Wilcox special, why they lost much as they did last year. So Mendoza's been really good. And I agree. I heard that one. If he's in the pocket, he's good. If he has to scramble, he's a little. Well, when Dante Moore scrambles and is outside, that's when he's actually almost his best.
Mhm.
Those off-platform throws to a degree. But also, then against Penn State, you saw them go, we're just going to run you a lot. And we hadn't seen that because Dante Moore is not a running quarterback. He wants to be a pocket passer for the most part. So keys to the game, I think, is getting Mendoza off his platform. But what is for Indiana to do against Dante Moore? Because if you move him out of the pocket, he just does what he does so far that we've seen this year, which has been absolutely surprising to me. I didn't know what to expect from Dante Moore, to be honest.
Well, yeah, it makes me laugh because when you look at the quarterbacks that were supposed to be good this year, like Lagway and Sellers and Allen and Klubnik and Nussmeier, they've all been pretty bad. And then you look at Mendoza and Mateer before his injury and Dante Moore. These guys have been great. And then people are saying, oh, the quarterback class is trash this year. It's like, no, you just hyped the wrong guys. You just picked the wrong quarterbacks that you thought were going to be good based off their experience and based off what they've had done in the past. They showed a lot of potential to improve. I mean, Aller and Klubnik have both taken steps back this year. They were better last year. So it's just looking at it. Yeah, it's a shock that Moore and Mendoza and Mateer and these other guys, and even Carson Beck, have been doing so well. But it's also kind of not, because when you kind of peel back the layers, Mendoza was very good at Cal. And he's doing even better with a great offense. I mean, it's just the way that it is. Everywhere Cignetti's been, he's had great offenses. Dante Moore had tons of talent out of high school. He just never got to realize it, and it's being realized on a very good football team. I was skeptical of Dante Moore. I'm not going to lie. I thought Oregon would take a step back this year because I did not think he was going to be anywhere near as good as Dylan Gabriel, and I was wrong. He's been incredible so far. He's been way better than anyone anticipated. But he always had the talent. The talent was there. It was just, was he ever going to realize it? You know, because a lot of guys do not realize. There's tons of 5-star and 4-star quarterbacks that flame out and never do a thing. But Dante Moore doesn't look like one of those guys. He's been great. I think for Indiana to stop Dante Moore, I think their best bet is to do everything they can to keep him in the pocket, like you said. I mean, Indiana has been a little susceptible to QB run. They allowed the Old Dominion quarterback in the first game to run for like 100 yards, but it was essentially on like 3 plays. So, I mean, that was also game 1. They've tightened that up. They've been better since that game. I mean, Indiana had issues last year with QB run. So I think with Indiana's defensive style, they are susceptible to QB run. So I don't know if they're going to change their game plan because of Dante Moore, but I think that it would be better for them. You know, you don't want to sit in the pocket and pick apart, but you don't want to run it all over you either. So I think IU's going to have to do better in that department because they just really – they're not the best team with QB run on defense. I'm not going to lie. They're not terrible, but they do have the susceptibility to get beat on those type of plays. Not like LSU, though, against Bama last year. Not that bad.
I couldn't even watch that game. I turned it off after the first quarter. I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Bill Rowe looked like Cam Newton. It was insane.
Looked like he was running against air.
I think the big key is, really is, I don't think if you're Oregon, you want to get into a, 2021 shootout with Washington State where they had to win it. You don't want to get into that kind of a game with Indiana and their offense. You want to keep that high-profile offense off the field. So if you're Oregon, you got to run the ball like you did with Penn State, and you got to control the clock, control the game environment, let your crowd get settled in, and run the ball, and use Dante effectively where need be. If you're dropping Dante back and throwing 35, 40 times, that's probably not a good game plan because you're probably going to end up in a shootout at that point. And I don't know if you want to get into a shootout with Mendoza.
Well, and I think that's fair. I think that's what both teams want to do. I think it's both teams want to just establish a run. Both teams like to run the ball. Both teams, the quarterbacks are basically neck and neck, almost equal statistically. So I think both teams still want to run the ball. It's just who does, what defensive front stops the other team. And Oregon's done a lot better this year until about the mid-fourth quarter against Penn State, when Penn State got frantic mode, to have to like save themselves. But so I think it really does, and it's always cliche. It comes down to the lines of scrimmage. Yeah, I know.
Every game matters with the lines of scrimmage. This is what makes me laugh with that. I will say, and a big key too is, can Indiana get an early score? Try to get Oregon reeling. Try to get the crowd a little uncertain, because if Oregon scores 2 touchdowns and they're up 14-0, it just kind of already feels like it's over. It's
already spiraling a little bit.
Yeah, and then Indiana's playing from behind. They're panicking. Then Mendoza might throw a bad ball or whatever. Then the crowd's really going crazy. I will say another thing that probably nobody's talking about that has been an issue, and I hate admitting this. It almost feels like an Achilles heel for Indiana. It really does, and it's so bizarre that this is actually a thing. Indiana does not audible at the lines of scrimmage. And that's why when they're on the road, they struggle with crowd noise because they can't hear. So a lot of times when quarterbacks and the coaches are struggling to communicate with the headset, like between each other, and things just look wrong, then you'll have like the quarterback change at the line of scrimmage. Ty Simpson did it a lot at Georgia, a lot. Like you could tell, like he was just making it his own like adjustments at the line. Indiana doesn't really do that. And so you'll have IU's offensive coordinator Mike Shanahan call the play, and that's the play. And if you can't really hear it, then there's issues. And that's why sometimes they kind of screw up a little bit, because against Iowa, they were not as crisp. And that's what worries me. They're going to have to let Mendoza be free to make his own adjustments at the line of scrimmage if things don't look right or if they're not communicating very well because the crowd's insane. You got to do that. All teams do that. Mendoza seems like a really bright individual. I'm sure that he studies the film. I'm sure that he can make the adjustments, because if you don't, Oregon's going to feast on that. That's what worries me.
Hopefully Cignetti watched the Ducks versus them when they showed how Oregon was training for the whiteout noise. Because if you were watching, we talked about briefly during that, you're watching our center Poncho and the O lineman talk. Quiet count, because the whole practice, all that practice for Penn State, they did quiet. They didn't say a word the whole week for practice. They had boom boxes right in their ears during so they just did it silently, completely silent. That's why they didn't have any false starts.
That's good,
because they were like, this is nothing now. So that is a concern for Indiana. I would agree. The crowd noise. If this was at Indiana, I would be more concerned for Oregon, but the way they practice, maybe not so much. So Indiana will be interesting. Mendoza's been at Oregon before. He's played at Oregon before. That was a sloppy game. Oh, by the way, Spaz, there is supposed to be rain potentially this weekend. This might be another fumble fest like that Cal game in 20.
I don't think it's going to be that much rain, but they're talking 20%, 30% chance.
That Cal game, though, there was like, the first half, wasn't there like 5 fumbles?
Yeah, it was awful.
Like that. It was like, oh God.
It's like that Washington game against Oregon State. The last year Oregon State was good. That game was crazy too. Yeah, Penix, they couldn't throw. Like the dynamic passing offense got obliterated by the rain. So Washington took that one out. But yeah, I mean, when there's a lot of rain, that changes the dynamic. I hope there's no rain. I hope it's just a fair weather.
Probably
game.
won't be. Maybe some mist, a little cool weather, or some overcast. But NJ Dog brings up a good question here, and I kind of agree. I mean, one, I think it is more in Mendoza 1 and 2, or kind of 50-50 right now. Yeah, definitely. If the winning quarterback looks good, like let's say they both throw like 3 or 4 interceptions, and they don't have any impact on the game. I don't know, but if one like really shines, Yeah, of course. I
At
think
least
so.
250 to 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Like that type of game. Even like 1 pick, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick.
Well,
You know,
even like your average 250, 2 touchdowns, maybe a rushing touchdown or like 70 yards rushing or something, no picks. Yeah, that guy's going to be definitely kind of stand alone the favorite, I think, at this point in the season, anyways. Still early, even though it's halfway through the season already.
which is
Sigh.
insane. I still can't
Sigh.
believe that it is halfway through
Yeah.
the season.